Magic, back with another video for you today, and I'm excited about this video. But first off, if you're new here, welcome. On this channel, we typically do all things Disney, Harry Potter, anything kind of nerdy and geeky and fun, you know, whatever we feel like getting into and causing mischief in that day. If you're returning, welcome back. And I'm excited for today's video. For those that don't know, I was born with a congenital heart defect, and I've had some heart surgeries. We'll get into that. But February is Heart Month, and February 7th through 14th is Congenital Heart Defects Awareness Week. What better month than the month of love to talk about all things heart and, you know, raise awareness. I've always thought, you know, there's not much I can personally do for other people that have CHD except to help be a voice for those that can't yet or that just don't know how. So I decided that I'm going to actually do something different. Usually if you're on my Instagram, usually throughout the month of February, I'll post, you know, different statistics, different facts, pictures, all kinds of fun stuff. Pictures of me and my crazy antics and my nurses and doctors, and I probably will still post a few, but I decided to do it this route this time. But without further ado, I got my laptop, I got my notes typed up. Let's get into it. Alright, now for the facts. The newborn heart is roughly the size of a walnut. Imagine having to work and do surgery on that, let alone if the baby is a preemie and it's even smaller. Just saying. Approximately 1 in every 100 to 125 babies are born with a CHD. So around 40,000 babies in the US each year. There are over 40 different types of CHD. Some extremely mild, some very severe. CHDs are the #1 birth defect, not only in the US, but in the world, I believe. Definitely in the US. They are also, unfortunately, the leading cause of all infant deaths in the US. 25% of babies born with a CHD will need surgery or some type of life-saving intervention before their first birthday. Hi, how you doing? Wait, hi, hello. How you doing? 50% of babies with this CHD require at least one surgery in their lifetime. Unless you're me and you go for a grand total of 6. Thank you, where's my medal? There are an estimated 3, this number kind of varied between the different websites I read, but there are an estimated 2 to 3 million people living with CHD or CHD survivors in the US. And which, thanks to medical advancements, now the death rate for CHDs has declined by 30% in the last decade. Now more than 90% of babies that are born with CHDs are living into adulthood. But as many as 80% of the adults living with CHD don't get the recommended care. That could be for a variety of reasons. That could be for they feel great and don't think they need it and aren't going to go to a doctor. Or like with me, my insurance at the beginning of 2021 changed without warning, and my cardiologist was not on there. And when I tell you we looked, oh, this has been a fight, and it might still be a fight this year. We're waiting to see. But because of the nature of a lot of these CHDs, many of us still go to a pediatric clinic. We see an adult specialist, but they specialize in congenital heart defects. There's absolutely nothing wrong with adult doctors, but because of the complex nature of a lot of these CHDs and a lot of our surgeries, it's better for us to be seen at a pediatric clinic. When I tell you there was no pediatric clinics on my insurance, I looked at mine. I looked at every surrounding, I mean, there's nothing. Do not get me started on that. That is a whole thing in and of itself. We are fighting it. I did end up going ahead and going. I had to pay $300 up front out of pocket, and the total is probably going to end up being about $2,500 for a visit. So money is definitely a thing with doctor visits. And now, what I have is called Tetralogy of Flow, and I will put it on the screen because it's spelled a little weird. And yes, I have heart humor. I totally have a shirt that has a picture of my disease, or whatever you want to call it, on there. It says, I go with the flow. And if you know me, you know there is not a saying that is any more accurate of me. Tetralogy of flow is actually 4 different conditions that occur together. And the 4 conditions are pulmonary stenosis, which means the narrowing of the pathway that carries blood from the heart to the blood vessels in the lungs is narrow. It's way too narrow, so you're not getting enough oxygen. Ventricular septal defect, or VSD, is an opening or a hole in the heart between the lower and right ventricles, or pumping chambers. Ventricular hypertrophy, which means basically an enlarged heart. The muscle is thickened. And then displaced aorta, which causes the aorta, which is the main blood vessel, to be a little bit farther on the heart's right side than usual. Mine kind of would do this thing where one of the surgeries I had, it was kinked or belt buckled, and so they went in and fixed it and got it, where it wasn't narrow, because it was too narrow at the part where it buckled. I ended up having to go back and have another surgery later on because it had belt buckled again within 6 months. So, what can I say? I like to keep people on their toes. And I also have a pacemaker. I've had 6 different heart surgeries altogether. One when I was about 4.5 months, because I was turning blue. Someone took me to Cook's, and that's kind of when, if I remember what she said right, that's kind of when I was diagnosed. Around that time, like, they knew I had something. When I was born, I was pretty dark. For, like, if you look at my parents, I was pretty dark, and my eyes were a little slanted, so they thought that I might have Down syndrome. So they did what's called a karyotype, and that's how they found out that I have Turner syndrome, which is why I'm so short, and which is most likely what caused my TOF. So when I was about 4.5 months, they ended up having to do surgery to do the repair. And then I had, let's see if I can remember this, 4.5 months, 8, 10, 12, 14, 18, I think. When I was 18, that was the last actual surgery I've had. I've also had a bunch of other different, catheterizations, which is where they go into the leg. I've had several of those done, and other things. But, so, I pretty much knew the nurses on my floor very well, and they knew me very well, and I'm sure they could tell you some stories. But I mentioned I have a pacemaker, so if you are easily grossed out by medical things, you might want to skip ahead. I'll put a timestamp right here. But every 10 to 15 years, they have to replace your pacemaker, and I've already gone through one, and there is my original pacemaker. Just fit, that's how big it is. Fits in the palm of your hand. And then I have this little device to turn on. And you know what? Let's freak them out. Let's actually use it. But you put it here. You have to be connected to Wi-Fi. And it sends a reading of your pacemaker to the doctor so they can see, that everything is good. Now, do I actually use this like I'm supposed to? No. But we're good. Those are the facts. And that's a little bit about my CHD and what I have. Us blue babies, man. We like to give people a run for their money. Alright, so I did have some people, Disney Crazy Family, submitted some questions. So let's see. Now, keep in mind, I am not a doctor, okay? So this is not, don't take this as the the cold hard truth. This is just what I was able to find and what I kind of already knew. But is CHD something that a person is born with, or is it developed over time? No, you're born with it. The congenital heart defects are present before birth because a baby's heart is actually fully formed at 8 weeks. So by 8 weeks in utero, whatever the heart's going to be, most likely already is. Now it's going to keep growing, but the ventricles and the different chambers are already formed, and the aorta, all that's already formed. So due to medical advances, now a lot of babies are diagnosed even before they're born. So they know pretty much when that kiddo is born that they're going to have heterology flow or whatever other heart defect it is. And they can have a specialized team in place already. So that's a good thing. Now, what are some of the added risks for someone who has CHD during COVID? I actually am just getting over COVID. Now, I'm not going to necessarily list out different risks because it varies so much from person to person, just like it does in the healthy population. But from what I read, some of the biggest takeaways are just the added risks of infection because of a lot of the medicine that a lot of us are on. Thankfully, I'm not on any immunosuppressants, so I was good in that realm. But another thing is when us CHD kiddos get sick, something as simple as a cold can trigger a chain reaction and cause our oxygen levels to plummet, especially like if you're born with a single ventricle or something like hypoplastic left heart syndrome, then or if you had a transplant or like TOF, has a lot to do with oxygenation in the blood. If your oxygen level plummets, that's not a good, not a good thing. So that's one of the risks. I know for a lot of them, the risks of it being severe are high. Thankfully, it wasn't that bad for me. I felt like it was slightly worse than the flu that I had. And I never ended up in the hospital or anything like that. I mean, yeah, I had I was going to tell my cardiologist, but after the 2 days, I felt a lot better. So, I had him on speed dial, ready to go if I needed him. But thankfully, I didn't have to go be admitted or, anything like that. I mean, there are risks, but I'm not sure every one of the risks. I'm not a doctor, so I'm not going to sit here and try to list anything out for you. But is CHD known, studied, or supported for scientific research like other serious medical conditions? Or is it in the early stages of research? Alright, this is where a lot of people have reactions to be like, well, that's crazy, or like their mind's totally blown. CHD kills twice as many children than all forms of childhood cancer combined every year. Then twice as many as all forms of childhood cancer. Yet childhood cancer gets roughly 5 times the funding for research that CHD does. CHD is the #1 birth defect. And it kills twice as many babies each year, but yet cancer. And not that I'm saying cancer does not need the funding. Absolutely, we need a cure for cancer as well. I don't want any funding taken away from childhood cancer in general. I think that all the research that we need to do on that we can do on that, we need to do. But CHD gets a lot less than they do. I don't know if this is exactly true, but one number I read said that CHD gets roughly 10 to 12 million a year, and then childhood cancer gets at least 50 million. So I mean, you see the numbers there. That's quite a bit. Do they have programs taught in schools about CHD like they do for March of Dimes? No. Not that I have seen, not that I've heard of, not that I'm aware of. What are some treatments for people with CHD? Medications, which I'm on one. Devices such as pacemakers and catheter procedures and surgery, and then possible transplant. One of the biggest things is that keyword being treatment. You can treat it, you can put a Band-Aid on it, but there is no cure at all. It is not something that is like, even with cancer, and like I said, I'm not bashing cancer, that's just one that I know a lot of people know. Cancer, after a certain amount of time, it goes from being, you're in remission to you're cured. CHD doesn't have that. Like I said, you can put a Band-Aid on it and hope like heck that Band-Aid holds, but that Band-Aid doesn't always hold. So that's the thing about CHDs. That's the main thing about CHDs that a lot of people don't realize. That, and then just how little funding we get and how prevalent they are. I guarantee you probably know at least one more person in your life with CHD. You just might not realize they have it because it's that prevalent. And I didn't even realize that until I started going to camp. That is going to do it today, guys. I just wanted to come on here and educate you a little bit and, be a little peek into what my life. I'm doing great right now. My cardiologist said that he's extremely happy. I'm in a really solid place right now. So that's good. I'm going to leave some links down below of other pages. There's one called Love for Lola. Actually, my mom is related, well, we're related distantly. My mom is her grandmother's cousin, Lynn's cousin. So, Love for Lola, I'll link down there. There's Courtney Given, and then I'll link a couple of my favorite charities down there for you to go, check out. And I'll link some other pages too. I'll link like the AHA and all that. That's gonna do it. If you have any questions, I might not know the answer, but I will find out. Feel free to leave them in the comments. I'm an open book. You can ask me anything. Seriously, I don't shy away from answering questions. So, I hope everybody is doing great. And don't forget, this week is National CHD Awareness Week. And on the 14th, we wear red. So, if you wear your red, post your pictures and put CHD, use the hashtag CHD awareness of you wearing your red. So, have a wonderful day. I love you guys, and we will see you real soon. Goodbye.